K&B Podcast. This week we are doing a very special interview with a kick and bass alumni himself, Riordan. How you doing, brother?
Hey bro, how's it going? Doing very good, thank you, man. Very good.
Where in the world are you right now?
Right now, I'm sitting at my little home studio, which is basically in between Portsmouth and Brighton, Brighton's, if you draw a line from London down to the south coast, you hit Brighton. So I'm basically a south coast boy, grew up by the sea, and then I've got my little setup here, and this is where I do all my producing.
So this is where you are now is kind of like home for you, this town
Yeah, it is. So I basically started living a lot more out of London. I've got a lot of friends that live there, to be honest. And this year I've spent a lot more time in London than I have before. I think it kind of just makes sense because I've been doing more sessions and, just meeting
flying around.
Now that COVID. Exactly. Well, now that COVID's kind of out the way, it's been nice to kind of be a bit more social with the producing. So I've been definitely spending more time in London, but this is where I do majority of my producing and work from.
I feel like it's good as a producer, especially kind of up and coming, really grinding, to kind of be in a place that's close enough that you can if there's a DJ in town that's playing a club, you can actually go and meet people, or you can do sessions, or just socialize, meet the industry people. It's good to have a city like that close, but sometimes I feel like if you're in the middle of the city, it's just overwhelming. It's kind of nice to be in a place where it's you don't have as many distractions. You can kind of work on music during the week, because living in New York, it's just party after party every single day. So I feel like the spot you're in now, it sounds like it's the perfect balance between them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Brighton's got a really strong scene, actually. So, I don't know if you've ever seen, but I think it was one of the biggest raves that was ever thrown.
The Fatboy Slim one?
Yeah, on Brighton Beach. Yeah, it's 200,000 people all on the beach. So, as you can imagine, from that, there's a strong scene there, and there's also a decent scene in Portsmouth as well, which is basically surrounding me, and then London's north of where I am. So I'm only kind of an hour from everywhere. So as you say, it's a pretty good setup, actually.
Yeah, I think one of our coaches, Sandor. You know Sandor? He's a producer. Sandor. He
I definitely know of him.
I think he lives in Brighton. I know because I know John Summit just played there. I think he opened it up. I'm pretty sure he either lived in Brighton or he just opened that show. But I've seen the videos from the Fatboy Slim shit. It looks fucking crazy, and I feel like even just 20 years after that, house music and clubbing culture must be huge there, just because it's such a historic thing happened.
Yeah, for sure. They still do raves on the beach. So I've been to a few festivals that they host on the beach, but they're
definitely not as crazy. No fucking way.
They're not as wild as they were before. There was no regulations, but I don't know. I think people maybe, I don't know if I'm making this up, but there was definitely some injuries, and I don't know if anyone died, but you just look at the size of crowds like that. It's gonna happen.
No security, people were climbing up structures and stuff. Anyone listening, go look up the Brighton Fatboy Slim rave. You'll see it's just a sea of people on the beach. It's fucking insane. It's also funny because in New York we have the only beach in New York, which is in Brooklyn on the water. It's called Brighton Beach. It's where this place Coney Island is. So it's just fucking weird that it's there's a Brighton Beach in England, but maybe that's where we stole the name from.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, interesting. I wanted to get a little bit more into your background, because you've kind of had this in my opinion, meteoric rise and kind of breakthrough into the industry in the last I don't know, really just year and a half. So we'd love to hear a little bit about how you got into house music, and then eventually producing and DJing, and just a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, thank you, man. That means a lot. This is actually, the first time that we've properly met and spoke. So,
I know.
Apart from just some DMs. So it's nice to chat and hear that from you. So I basically started DJing. I guess I got my first decks when I was 15.
How old are you now, by the way?
I'm 21.
Oh my God. Okay.
So So basically got my first set of decks when I was like 14 or 15, maybe, I don't know. But it was a Christmas present and I fell in love with it. I guess at the time I didn't really know that I liked house music. I didn't really know what house music was aside from other music that you would dance to. So it was kind of when I first went to music festival, which was, well, the first one I went to was Boardmasters, second one was Reading, and that was in the same summer when I was 16, both big festivals in the UK. And I guess that was when like I really figured that house music was like my passion was there for it. Yeah. So I kind of saw what the DJs were doing and I had a set of decks at home, and that was kind of when it the flip switched, or the switch flipped for me. And basically from then on I was kind of taking it a lot more seriously. I started playing just parties locally, and yeah, really just fell in love with the music. And it wasn't actually until COVID hit, which I guess I was about 18 or 19, I'm not sure. And that was when I started producing. So that was basically my opportunity to put, I had no distractions. I
Yeah.
wasn't a massive gamer or anything like that. I mean, I love a game of FIFA, but that was never really like something that I was massively into. So I just kind of was like, well, I'm just going to put literally every hour that I
It
can
became like your
into
video
produce.
game pretty much.
It literally did, yeah. And honestly, it was the best decision that I ever made. But it was never a chore. It wasn't like, oh,
Mm.
let's make sure that I produce now. It was like I could actually make music and this is so fun and potentially I could make something out of this. But yeah, I guess it was really just through COVID. That was when I really locked into it. And from when I left school, which for us in the UK is at 18, I don't know how that works for you, but once I left education, I got quite fortunate and basically stumbled across a guy whose name's Josh Deal, and he runs a company called Zebra, which is basically TikTok marketing agency. They help songs to go viral on TikTok. And I just, by complete chance and coincidence, met Josh just as I left school. And the reason that this is kind of relevant is because I worked for him for 18 months, basically just studying TikTok and completely watching influencers blowing up and also watching songs explode and seeing what that can do for the artists. So throughout that entire period of time, I was learning to produce and I was kind of improving and also DJing where I could. And yeah, I basically had a really cool bird's eye view on the whole platform and what it was doing for artists. And coming from this small town on the south coast of the UK, I really didn't have any access to the music industry or any contacts. So I thought, there's no point me making all my music and putting this effort into it and no one's going to hear it. So I might as well try and do what these other guys are doing that I'm seeing and watching every day. So I started just posting on TikTok and doing that alongside my producing. And I was actually saying to a friend of mine, I think that the TikTok kind of sped up faster than my producing was progressing at one point, and it was kind of getting away from me a little bit. But I see that now as a good thing. It definitely put a bit of pressure on me to make sure I was constantly improving, and really that's how my management found me, and I guess how I'm here right now.
That's a amazing story, man. And I think a lot of people we speak to, it's a very similar kind of situation. The DJ to producer path, like for me, it was like that as well. Kind of DJ'd at a young age, little parties around, and like fell in love with producing. And producing, I think, especially in the beginning when it's like so new to you, it's never really like a chore. It really is like kind of like a video game or something that it's like just it gives you a lot of joy as you do it, because you're like, holy shit, I just made this from scratch, and I didn't know I could do this. I wanted to
And
ask
they're
when
the
you
worst beats.
what's up.
And they're the worst beats as well.
Oh, they're
They're
the
the
worst
worst beats
beats ever, but
ever.
it's actually, I think, like, but I think when you start, because you're not like concerned with them a lot of stuff, and like you're not overthinking like mix downs and just like all the stuff you can overthink when you're a music producer. I think that sometimes there's almost like a little bit more like creativity and like musicality. Like I'll listen to stuff that I did like 8 years ago, and I'm like, sure, like the mix is not great, but like there was just like a lot of experimentation and stuff that you wouldn't expect as like a newer producer. So yeah, they
I
usually are
totally
the worst beats, but it's a lot of fun to go back and listen to those.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like I find it so funny listening back because sometimes I do go back over old projects and I'm like, how did I come up with that melody? You know, there's like a bunch of different layers. And obviously at the start you do tend to, a lot of people anyway, I think tend to try and they overfill their tracks because they just think that layer means a better track, which obviously not isn't necessarily how it is. But I do think that you are more raw creativity at the
Yeah.
start for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's so funny now listening back to the beats I was making then. And honestly, I was so blindly promoting them as well. I didn't care. I thought that they were sick and I would be posting about them every day and just showing them to anyone that would listen. And now I like listen back to them and they make me laugh. But you got to go through that to get to any sort of a the point where I'm at
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, it's like a psychological phenomenon. It's like everyone that was like a producer, they always think in like the first couple of years, it's like this is the beat that's gonna change my life, or this is gonna get signed to this label or whatever. And it's just the blind confidence. I feel like unless you already came from the background and you're kind of like, no, I'm gonna grind it out for a few years. It's I see it with everyone, myself and tons of people. But I think it's part of the game. It's like even now, it's like stuff I'll make like 3 years ago. I'll be like, oh, it's trash. Like, that's the whole goal of a producer is to like level your standards up and get to the point where it's like, you're constantly improving, even if it's not by much, just, always going up there.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. And I think for me, it's definitely been a bit of a process of like evolving as well. So trying to improve, but also trying to figure out exactly where I want to sit with my sound and just experimenting with different sounds as well. And I think that that's part of the improving is also evolving with like the times and with how your taste changes just as I've got older.
yeah, especially at your age, like, you're I uh, I would say on the younger side of kind of like the DJs you see. Like most people aren't 21 already, like DJing and releasing on sick fucking record labels. So taste changes, and especially like the difference between what you're into at like 17 years old versus like 20, massive change. Like as you get older, it kind of it's just I feel like it's a slower process in terms of how taste change because you're a little bit like you've gone out to the world, you've seen a little bit more, you've experienced more music, and so you're more comfortable kind of with like, okay, this is what I actually like as opposed to this is like what I think I like. And like you're right, being able to adapt is super important. I did want to ask you when you went to these festivals and kind of like discovered like electronic music, do you remember like which DJs you saw at all, or whether it's like a label and a tent, or you're just kind of like,
No, I definitely do. So one that really I'll never forget was the first time I saw Bicep. It was my first festival and it was Boardmasters. Basically, they have this stage. I think it was called The Point. And I don't know if you know about Boardmasters, but it's in a place called
where is it?
so it's in Cornwall, which is basically the middle
That's
of
in the south.
nowhere.
Oh no, never
Yes,
mind.
south. So it no, it is, but it's south and west. So it's as far west as you can go, and south as well. You know, it's on the coast,
Yeah.
but it's a beautiful place. It's really hilly, and it's where everyone goes in the UK to surf. So I saw
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
that you were just doing some surfing in Costa Rica. So if you ever come to the UK, you'll like it there. If ever I actually want to surf, I'll
It's
go on a
cold as
trip to
fuck though.
Cornwall.
I remember one of like the Love Island contestants. She was like a surfer from Cornwall or some shit like that. I forgot her name, but yeah, that's like it. But you have to like wear a wetsuit and shit there, right?
Bro,
Or in the summer.
you have to wear a wetsuit, a
uh,
hood, boots, gloves,
oh my
everything.
god.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the summer, in the peak of summer, you'll be fine with just a wetsuit, normally a long
Yeah,
one. But if you're going out in the winter, any time in the winter months, and you don't have a hood, gloves, shoes, I
you'll
mean,
die.
you will just die. Like you just don't do that.
It's like that in New
So
York. It's fucking
anyway,
freezing. Yeah. Okay. Board masters. We're getting on a tangent here.
Yeah, it's all good. So Bournemasters is in Cornwall, and they do have some really sick acts. It's kind of a mixed festival. It's not exactly a electronic music festival. They have completely an array of genres there, but they do have some really cool electronic artists. And I saw Bicep close on Sunday night, and it was on a stage called The Point, which literally overlooks the coastline of Cornwall.
Oh my
You're up
God.
on a cliff top. The sun was setting, and they were playing Glue, and I was just like, this is the best moment of my whole life. And that was one that definitely stuck in my head. But then another one that comes to mind when you mentioned that was when I was at Reading. And it's actually funny because I don't remember one specific DJ, but I do remember a stage. And there was a stage which was called the Smirnoff House stage. So it's just sponsored by Smirnoff, which is the
Yeah.
drinks brand. And basically it was a tiny stage, probably one of the smallest stages at the whole festival. And I've got videos of me and my mates dancing when there was probably about 20 people at this whole stage, but the DJs were just ripping the sickest house tunes. And that weekend, me and my friends as well all just fell in love with it, and we didn't really care. Like Post Malone or whatever was on main stage, we were like, no, let's go Smirnoff House, and basically just hit this stage with like 20, 30 other people just dancing. And yeah, I remember looking at the DJ there and being like, that looks like fun. And there was no one in the crowd, but it still looked like so much fun.
It's so funny how like a lot of times at like even like these big festivals, like I've played these kind of small stages where it's like a corporate sponsor or something, or it's just like a little like stage. It's not like, you know, in America we have like a lot of art cars at like Insomniac festivals. I don't know if you heard of those, but they're basically like these kind of like Burning Man like cars, and especially at EDC Vegas, they kind of like move around the festival. But sometimes you'll have like sick DJs do a label takeover or whatever. But it's so funny because like these festivals pay so much money for like acts like Post Malone, or you know, just like headliners and these big stages. And it's like sometimes it's like the best vibe is just like at the little stage, like sounds, you know, you can get right up close to the speaker. There's no fucking crowd of people there you have to deal with to like get to the front. So I can definitely relate to that. I have a lot of good memories at festivals, just fucking small stage, wonking out with your friends and shit.
Yeah, they're the best. I don't really like being at stages. Matt, I love seeing the bigger artists too, but I like to be able to have at least enough space to just dance and move properly, because when you're in that like sardines, I don't know, I don't feel like I can enjoy the house music properly because like you're meant to dance to it. So I'd rather be somewhere or even a bit further back in the crowd where I can just like actually vibe to it. But yeah, that was definitely one of my best memories. And that was really after that festival, I was like, that's it. I'm mixing house music.
So after that, did you kind of like, how did you go about kind of getting educated? I was, let's say, in house. Did you kind of like, you know, start to look up stuff on YouTube or Spotify, or just like curious what that process was like for you?
Definitely. So to be fair, my dad is really big into house music, and he had shown me some house music before. And I always kind of liked it, but I don't think that I'd seen it how it was meant to be seen yet, which is in
Mm-hmm.
front of a crowd. So it kind of took me to experience it. Also, I was young, but it took me to experience it firsthand, how it's meant to be experienced, until I really realized how much I was into it. And then after that, definitely personally, in terms of my own DJing sort of learning curve, I didn't buy any courses or anything like that. I found a lot of really great content on YouTube for free. I think there's a lot of really good creators out there, specifically when I was learning how to DJ. So I kind of more spent time DJing, I would say, than actually looking into the music. But I was definitely getting into SoundCloud at the time as well, and finding some really cool mixes there. And I loved finding some kind of bootlegs and edits which my friends wouldn't have because it was on SoundCloud, and then putting them into a little mix and sending them to my mates or something like that. But that was basically the next steps that I took, was spending more time in my bedroom DJing and trying to play DJ more house parties. That was kind of where it started, because house parties are big in the UK, and at 16 that was the perfect time. That was 16, 17, 18. All you do is just go to house parties like every weekend. So I was able to just, through my school, my sister who's a little bit older than me, and just through friends, start playing a lot more parties. And I think it was a really good thing, because by the time I got to play in clubs or small venues, obviously as a DJ, sometimes you get a little bit nervous, but I wouldn't say that I ever got that real terrified feeling, because I'd had so much time in the bedroom and at house parties. I just couldn't wait to scale it up at that point.
Yeah, I think it's super important to get that experience of just performing for crowds, and especially like in a nightclub. Like obviously things are more structured, like you have a booth, you have this, but there's always things that happen, like, you know, drunk people coming up to you and something happens in the dance floor, and blah blah blah. And you know, it was the same for me. Like in high school, I would just DJ so many house parties, and I really got to like, it took me a while like to appreciate how comfortable it made me just like DJing and being like the guy. I've also heard this like theory that a lot of times like DJs, they become DJs because it's like they're the people at the party. Like that's what gives them the most fun at the party, kind of. And I realized that like for me, that's the case. Is like whenever I'm at a party, I'm always like, I'd rather be DJing. Like that's kind of like what I would want to do. Do you feel like you're like that as well? Like you're kind of like now like the music guy, and you know, it's hard to just enjoy the
Well,
party and dance. You're like, fuck, I wish I was on the decks right now.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100. I do that all the time. I was at ADE earlier this year, but I was basically just there with my management. I was just meeting people, and I was at sets the whole weekend, and I didn't play, and I was just like, it was doing my head in, man. But yeah, in terms of at parties and stuff, there was definitely just one party when the flip switched, and I wasn't even physically DJing on DJ decks, but I had the aux for the night.
Uh-huh.
And I remember I was just on my phone. I was in control of the aux. I don't know how I managed to get in control of this aux. It was at a massive after party for like our school leaving ball. And literally, I got on the aux. I probably played tunes for about 4 hours straight. And I remember just the feeling of it hitting and hitting and hitting. And when I could see everyone reacting, that was when I was like, I don't want to be just part of the party anymore. That I want to be in control of it, because
Selector.
it's yeah. There was a little bit of it was just the feeling of seeing everyone going nuts for a song you play, and then you play another one, and then they went nuts again, and just kind of, it's addictive. It's really addictive.
I tell people this all the time, and it is probably one of the, like the rush of performing is, if you haven't experienced it, especially like I'm sure it's like this for any type of performance, whether you're like a rapper or just like playing drums or something, but the rush of performing, the amount of dopamine it can release in your brain, it's almost dangerous at some points, because as a DJ, like you can go from like this crazy feeling of like you are like the god when everything is hitting, every song is just getting that reaction, it's, you know, it's all lining up, and then it's all over, and then you're going back to your hotel room. But I will say that like everyone remembers like that first time that you were like, wow, this is like super addicting. It doesn't have to be like a big stage, or you don't even have to be DJing. It's more of like you provided so much joy to so many people, just kind of with what you like, and you got to share that with people. So I think that's super awesome. And I think it's so, for me, it's like in the UK, I feel like house music, when you're like 16, 17, 18, like that's what's cool anyway. So it's kind of nice because like you don't, you know, you're not, maybe you were like, were you getting bombarded for requests of, oh, can you play hip hop or more commercial stuff? Or
Definitely, yeah. People would come at me with requests a lot, and I very quickly developed a hate relationship with requests. So I was like,
yeah,
yeah, I learned how to handle them kind of quickly, or I would just be like, oh yeah, I'll add it to the queue, and I
and just
was
forget
never
about
ever
them.
gonna play it. Yeah, but yeah, it is what it is. It just, going back to the point you were saying about performing, it's just kind of interesting, because I guess I hadn't really thought about it like this many times, but when I was younger, I used to do acting. So I used to be in like shows. I did some stuff in London and abroad, and just basically in theatre. I used to sing and whatever. I can't really sing anymore, but I think that I got a bit of a bug for being in front of an audience and performing it, and it was kind of a similar feeling. But then as I grew up, I definitely grew away from that life. I didn't have as much of a passion for it anymore. And then I think when I found DJing, it kind of just became the perfect balance and middle ground where I could be in front of an audience and get that buzz again, but doing something that I love. And also then I discovered that I loved making music as well, and it kind of all just fit together, fit all those pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting how like that kind of got like re-unlocked like later in like a different form. But I think yeah, usually people that become DJs, there's something like either in their childhood or before that it's like kind of like an expression of that. For me, it wasn't like I never really, yeah, I was never like into the performing arts, but remember I was like into skateboarding. I don't know why. I always feel like a big parallel between like skateboarding and DJing, even though they're very different. I was like kind of like the the art form of getting something on video and being able to like show that to the world. I was always like a very video kind of guy.
Were you big into skating then?
Now, no, I skateboard to the grocery store and fucking back. I could probably still do like a kickflip, but it's
Oh,
just like,
really? Okay.
oh yeah, I could do a kickflip for sure. But no, it's too dangerous at my old age of 29. I can't break my ankle or something like that.
Bro, skateboarding is the single most painful sport I've ever done in my life. I picked it up. I tried to pick it up when I was in like my late teens because one of my best mates is really good at it. And seriously, I just had bruises everywhere for about 6 months. It was so bad.
And you're like,
But
well,
it
why the
is
fuck am I doing this? Like,
literally, yeah. When you try and drop it in for the first time
oh
and
my
just
God.
smack against the concrete, like it's not good.
And you're like, I'm definitely not doing that again. But then you feel like a little bitch if you don't try it. And you're like, all right, I'm gonna try it again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things you have to like start early because like your body just like it can like absorb it. Like the older you get, like if you fall down, it's just fucking it's not good. All right,
Definitely.
but back to music. So kind of like getting back into your story. So you started working at this agency because like I definitely want to talk a little bit more about social media because you absolutely kill it on social media. And I think it's been like a huge part of your journey. So this agency, it's funny how you call it Zebra because we would just say
Yeah,
Zebra.
yeah.
And did they work with like electronic music acts mostly, or is it kind of like in all music?
So they work with electronic acts, but it's definitely not pushed into that direction. That's just an umbrella. They literally cover any genre, every artist, and honestly, so I was technically the sort of first employee that he brought on. So the company was really, really foundation level when I started, and then it ended up growing. And I think when I left the company 18 months later or so, there was probably about 7 or 8, something like that. So it had grown
Oh
nicely, and
wow.
it was also interesting just to at a young age watch a business grow. It was definitely learned loads from that experience, but just particularly we would get approached by different labels, and I'm sure there's a high likelihood that maybe even one of your songs has had a campaign and you don't even know about it if the labels sort it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, basically labels would come to us and say, hey, we have this song, maybe they've had a little viral video or something, but they're not getting many recreates. We want to try and get some momentum behind it. And then we would have a roster of influencers, and we would kind of choose the most um I don't know how basically the most suitable influencers for the song, and then we would get a bunch of them to post it on the same day or the same week, and it would kind of generate a bit of momentum behind the song. But it just meant that every day I was searching for new influencers. I was looking at the ones that we've had on for a while and how they were growing and the opportunities that they were getting. And it was really just that made me think, okay, I need to get involved because there's something going on here. And if I miss this kind of wave, I was quite lucky because I think I got onto TikTok relatively early, not right at the start, but kind of early on, and that definitely helped me to grow, you know, a little bit quicker, I think. And I really wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for working at this agency, because I think I always had a little bit of I don't want to do that. It's not the
Yeah.
route that I want to go. You know, like a lot of people do, really, that kind of attitude towards it. And having worked for this company, I just felt like I would be an idiot if I didn't make the most of the opportunity, because I saw people getting lots of success and lots of opportunities, and also financial opportunities just from this platform. And I've just felt like I had to get involved, and honestly, it was the best decision that I made.
Um, yeah, that's really interesting. And I feel like when you when you were working at this agency, like what was the initial like when you started to kind of like apply it to your own music and your own brand, you know, obviously what I think you do so well on TikTok is put yourself out there and your music out there, versus like, you know, go give it to like some influencers to see if it creates some buzz. So like, were you kind of like, okay, like what was like that first, like, you know, because I feel like you've gotten to a groove on social media where you figured out something that kind of like works for you, but like how long did it take to kind of like get get into that? Did you try out like a bunch of different ways of promoting your music? Because I agree with you. Like I was very reluctant to get on TikTok in the beginning. I still don't love doing it. It's not my favorite thing, but it's like kind of like the question is like, do you want people to be exposed to your music? It's like then you kind of have to, you know, play the social media game. Otherwise, no one's gonna listen to your music. No one's gonna know about it. And you know, all music producers at the end of the day, all they really want to do is show the most amount of people their music that they can. But yeah, like what was like that first kind of like, okay, like I've seen the platform, I've seen how other people have been like successful on it. How do I now take this and like try to fit it with like what I'm doing as an artist?
Definitely. So, I guess I really just saw how quickly people were growing. So I thought once I could get off the ground and you start to get that snowball, as long as you're consistent, then it really does go. And I was seeing that on a daily basis, people growing thousands of followers. So I kind of just knew in my head that if I just kept consistent with it, I was bound to get at least one video to sort of go. And honestly, that was all I needed to kind of hook me in. But it was not a quick process. And I think the fact that I was working for this company at the same time was actually a good thing, because I wasn't putting too much pressure on myself to be like, I have to have a viral video right now. It wasn't like I was making my money off of music at the time. I was working for this company. So it was kind of that there wasn't that much pressure there for me to be going viral. It was really just for myself. And I think that was a really good thing. I spent at least, honestly, at least probably 3 months, 4 months getting, you know, in the tens or hundreds of views, not really nothing. And I was posting, I would say at the start probably at least every other day, but trying to post every day. And then probably after 2 3 months or so, I had one video maybe get 40,000 views or 50,000 views, something like that, and it was enough to get me excited and keep me going. And then for a long time after that, I was really posting every single day. At the time, I wasn't doing as much producing, so it was a lot of like mashups and DJ content, and I was just still in the early-ish phases of producing, or I just didn't feel like maybe it was there yet, or the videos I did do of my producing didn't do very well because the songs weren't very good. So I kind of stuck to what was doing well at the time. And then it was definitely, once it started to snowball, it definitely sped up quickly. Then I would say the growth to about 70,000 followers or so was like really quite quick. And I had my first video hit 1 million views and all of this type of stuff. And I was starting to figure out what was working, basically just through trial and error. And honestly the most important thing that I think in TikTok is just using reference accounts. You know, producers use reference tracks all the time, but they don't use reference accounts when they're making videos. And I think that is so important to look at what videos are going viral right now, and that can literally change month to month. So even now to this day, I'm looking at creators that I like their videos or that are doing really well, and trying to see how I can take a little bit of inspiration from what they're doing and put it into my content. So I'm still sticking to the style that I make and sticking to the content that I like making, but just taking elements, even if it's just something as small as text. You know, you might see a video of a song that goes viral that's a pop song or a rock song or a jazz song, and you think that the text that they used on the video was really smart. So I'll just take that and be, how can I incorporate that into my videos, but with house music? So it's little things like that that I was doing all the time, and just making sure that did spend a lot of time on TikTok, and the fact that I was able to do it for work was quite helpful, because I was basically working while I was doing this for a lot of the time. And then, yeah, once I got to maybe 70, 80K, I would say I started to take my foot off the gas a little bit, because I wanted to focus more on my own producing and start figuring out how I could promote my own music. So that kind of took a bit of a priority. And I also had this kind of epiphany, which I think a lot of creators that I've spoke to have had, which is that I was sometimes posting mashups of songs which I didn't even really like. I was just posting them because I knew that these songs were going to get views. And then I kind of had this realization that, what is the point of gaining followers? The whole idea is I want people that are actually going to be listening to my music, wanting to come to my shows, engaged and interested in what I'm doing. So if I'm posting songs that I'm not even interested in, then what is the point in all of this? So I actually decided that I would much rather grow more slowly, but be trying to be a lot more true to the style of music that I really love, listening to, B, making. And then actually my engagement dropped for a little period of time, and slowly but surely it started to pick back up again. And I think that was when my For You page sort of started, my videos started landing on the right For You pages, and people that were actually interested in the style of music that I really love.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how like you can kind of just go from nothing and then kind of like end up at like 80,000 followers. And I think it has to do with like these apps. Obviously, the way they design the algorithm is it's supposed to kind of be able to like, you know, lift creators like from nothing to something. And I think what you said about realizing that like you could probably grow it like endlessly, because it seemed like you kind of figured out the platform, you know, based on like working on it as an artist, as Riordan, and as you know, working on it from the back end. And I think I see this a lot with like DJs now, is that like, and it's like something I think about as well, is like, you know, I could do stuff that just doesn't really feel like me, but I know that would be like received well, and then, you know, have that kind of like number increase on social media, which of course there's like a primal feeling of like, oh, that's like, you know, connected to my value either as like an artist or my popularity or something like that. But I think once you kind of get that epiphany of like, where do I actually want to be in this space? Like, what are the parties that I actually want to be playing? Like, who are the people I want to be associated with? It kind of like changes what that means for you. You know, I much rather have like 10,000 followers that really love and are engaged in our community and like, you know, support the style of music I want to do, versus just like 100,000 that are, you know, NPCs for the most part, and you know, they're just like that one video and they're like, oh, I'm gonna follow you. So I think that's super awesome that you kind of like came to that realization. And I'm sure it was a period of like discouragement going from like so much engagement and then being like, okay, we kind of have to like start it over. But I feel like there's always like an element with like social media of trust the process. I definitely am a big fan of the reference track thing. I think like I want to ask you, like when you watch like social media, like let's say like TikTok, for example, because I feel like musicians kind of do this when they listen to music. At least for me, it's very hard to sometimes it's hard to just enjoy it as like music. I'm like, all right, where's that snare panned, and how does this mix sound?
Yeah.
Like when you
Yeah.
look at a video that does really well, are you kind of like engaging the content, or just like consuming the content as entertainer? Or are you like, okay, what's like the pacing of like the cuts, and how is the text like put, and blah blah blah?
Bro, instantly, every time,
Instantly see
honestly, that's,
everything.
yeah.
It's like
But
the
only
Matrix, like the code.
exactly. But to be honest, I feel like it's weird when it's only with music content. Like I love just digesting and being a consumer of other content that's just completely irrelevant and just
Yeah.
enjoying it. But when it comes to music content, honestly, I can't help. Every time I see a video, I have playlists. You can save stuff on Instagram and TikTok as well. I have playlists set that I save videos to all the time for inspiration, so I can just go, and if I'm feeling like dry for a video that day, I'll just go onto my saved posts, and there'll be a whole catalog of posts which I could use and kind of take inspiration from. So yeah, every time now, to be honest, that I'm on the platform, if a video comes up that I think could be relevant or I could use, my brain's automatically go into how could I take something from that and put it into my own videos, just like it does with music now, exactly as you were saying. And I haven't really thought of it in that way, but it is definitely is the case. But then I guess similarly with music, when I'm listening to an old hip hop track, maybe I do break it down actually a little bit, but especially with pop songs and I don't know, certain type of rock and all these other genres, when I'm listening to that, I'm not really trying to break it down so
Yeah.
much compared to when I'm listening to a house track. And it's the same with other videos. It's not like I'm doing that 24/7. It's just when I see something which I feel could be at all relevant to what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think it's a super good skill to develop. And like when you were posting all the time, were you kind of like planning what you were gonna do? Or were you kind of like waking up, you're like, okay, let's like make a TikTok today, and figuring it out in the moment?
So I quit my job, and that was when I decided that I was gonna focus my content on the music that I really love. So when I made that decision to go, okay, let's sacrifice, don't worry about views, don't worry about whatever, just let's focus on getting followers and people interested that are really in love with dance music and specifically house. So yeah, basically that was when I made that decision, which was when I left my job, and I was spending a lot of time making content, more than I am now for sure. When I first left, I would say that making content was as big a part of my day as making music or doing other stuff related. It was
Takes a
probably a
lot of fucking
50-50
time.
split. It takes so much time. Now, I think I've got a lot better at choosing my moments and getting out videos more efficiently and quickly. And sometimes I think I did used to put more thought into my videos, but I also think that with social media and particularly with TikTok, it's really important that you don't hate making the videos. And I think you're never going to be able to sustain something that you really hate. So when people say to me, sometimes they come to me and they're talking about videos and they say, I really hate making this type of video where I'm talking at the camera and I'm breaking down how I made this track, but I've got to do it. And I go, well, you don't, like, just make something that you actually don't mind making, because if you don't hate it, then you're going to be able to sustain it. And there's so many videos out there that are so easy to film. You can see from my videos, I think sometime over time, some of my videos, some people would say that they've maybe got a little bit lazier because I don't do as much editing, but actually people are really just interested in, is the song good, is the main thing, I think. And obviously the video that goes around it can be the difference between a lot of views or I think that the foundation of views comes from, is it a good song or not? And the video quality definitely has an effect on the views, but it's not the be all and end all, because I've made some videos which I think are really amazing and I put loads of time into them, and then I put them out and they've completely flopped. And on the other side of that, I've made a video where I've literally picked up my phone and hit film, and in one take I've recorded something, posted it, and it's a song that I made that day, and it's gone crazy because people really like the music. So I think ultimately it is actually more important to focus on the music, and then the content should come around it, and just making sure that it's not content that you really hate making, because you're never going to be able to sustain that.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have like your voice kind of, and it's like if you're trying to be like I think I saw this guy Noctu, he's like an American DJ, like more bass house, and he was doing like a day in the life tour. I think I saw this yesterday, and like he sounds so like depressed in the way he's doing it, where he's just like, and then we went here, and then we did this, and then we did that, but it kind of like fits the vibe and like the brand a bit. And I'm like, well, what's the point of like putting on like this kind of like TikTok voice where you're going to be like narrating and all that stuff if it's not you? Because at the end of the day, if it's like you said, if it's a dread to make content, it's just gonna make it miserable, and it's gonna kind of come out, and I feel like it's gonna affect the views in a way. I did want to like to ask you a little bit more about because I think it's like super interesting now when producers make tracks. Like there's this kind of like, all right, I made a track, I want to like show people as soon as I'm done making the track, kind of to see like a reaction. Do you like how do you like figure out like which of your songs you want to release? Do you kind of like test them out on the platforms, and if something gets a buzz, do you then stop kind of showing new stuff to kind of keep the momentum going on that first one? And how do you like, let's say like you showed something on TikTok, it did well or it had a good reaction, and you decide to release it, like what do you do to then go back and like put that song in front of their faces again and kind of create like a release strategy? Because that's something for me that I feel like I don't necessarily struggle with, but like I do feel like lost, and I'm sure there is no right or wrong way to do it, but I'm just super curious to see like what your thoughts are on that.
No, it's a good question, and honestly, it's a learning curve for me. Every single release I'm learning, and I'm trying to improve the strategy. And the thing is that the strategy is always changing because the platform's always changing. But in terms of what I do, I would say probably the best example was the release that I had in January this year, which is called Reflection, which is kind of a euphoric Latin house track. And it had a little bit of a moment on TikTok and on Reels as well, where it was just like one section of the song just seemed to be really connecting with people. I basically made it in the studio when I was genuinely really hungover, and it was going to be one of those songs that would probably sit on my laptop, and it was going to be in my promos, and I would maybe play it out sometimes, but I really wasn't planning on doing a lot with it at all. It was kind of one that I had just put to the side, and that day I just felt like I wanted to make something a bit more chilled, and it kind of just came together. But when I teased it, instantly it just hit. I think the first video did maybe like a couple 100,000, and then I posted another video of it which did about 1.6 mil or something along those lines. And basically that really did change our strategy, where we went, okay, we need to adapt now, we need to act quickly, and we need to try and use everything that we've learned. Because in the past I have had songs that, or edits that have gone kind of semi-viral, if you like, and then I felt like I missed the opportunity, and then the opportunity is gone. Because I think the window of opportunity is longer than most people think, but there is still a window of opportunity, and eventually it's hard to get a song to keep going and going viral over months and months and months. I mean, there's some tracks, for example, like Rhyme Dust, Dom Dollar and MK, which went, and they did keep people waiting for a decent-ish amount of time because they had releases, they had contracts signed, and there's a lot of logistics which a lot of people that listen to music don't understand. And I know that firsthand from trying to put music out. When something goes viral, it's stressful in a way because you really want to give that to people as quickly as you can, and sometimes it's just not that easy. But I think the best thing to do is what I did was look at other people that have had these viral moments and how they keep the interest by making different content around the song, and basically just trying to keep it alive for as long as you possibly can. And luckily I was in a situation with Reflection where I didn't have a song that was about to come out that was signed and ready to go, so I was able to just drop it as a self-release and put it out. And yeah, this, I was really happy with how it was received. And now I'm actually in a little bit of a dilemma, I guess you could call it, but it's more just, it's hard because as an artist personally, it's really important to me to be respected by other DJs and people that I look up to. And I don't want to sacrifice the music, the sort of integrity of my music. And for me, I want to be charting on Beatport, and I want to be getting support from other DJs. That's really important to me. I'm not just in this for a 20 million stream viral song. That's not really my goal. But at the same time, when I have a bit of a platform like I do on my TikTok, then it would be silly of me not to try and use it. So I think right now for me, I'm really just in a phase where I'm trying to figure out, I have a few releases lined up with some cool labels that I've wanted to release on for quite a long time. And that for me is really important. They're going to be some more clubby records, and I'm hoping to get some more support and hopefully on Beatport as well. So that's definitely going to be really cool. And then at the same time, I'm really just trying to keep testing music out on TikTok, because making a song and then testing it on TikTok has become a part of my music making process. And that's why it doesn't ever really feel like a chore for me anymore. I finish a song and then I test it out, and that's just how it goes. I think it's important not to get too involved in the views, because sometimes you could really think that you've made something amazing that you're proud of, and then it doesn't perform as well as you wanted, and that doesn't necessarily mean that your song is bad and that it's not worth putting out. And I think that a lot of people do get into that mindset, and I really try and stay away from that. But at the same time, it is hard to stay away from that mindset, because it's social media. You can be consumed by the numbers very, very quickly. And at the moment, I'm really just trying to find that balance between putting out the music that I love and the club tracks, and then at the same time keeping on testing the waters on TikTok and just waiting for one of those viral moments. And they just come every now and then, and you have to be ready to act when they do come.
I think that's like a super mature way to look at it. And you got to think of it as like a tool in your arsenal. There's so many more aspects of being an artist than just like social media. And I think it's easy, especially for younger or newer artists, because nowadays you have to kind of like come up through that platform. So it's like, you don't have to at all, but that is the main way that you see new talent get discovered, just because of the way the algorithm works. But I think it's so important to like kind of be like, okay, this is like a tool I can use to promote like my art, but it's not like the judgment of like how good my art is. And I feel like it's almost scary, because it's like you almost like don't want to put certain stuff on there, because you're like, well, if it doesn't do well, that's gonna subconsciously make me think that it's like a waste of a release or something, because it's not going to do something for me. A quick story that's tangentially related, like I put out a song with Noizu in February, and we really just like it came together like super last minute. So we really had like from the day the song, like we were happy with the master until like the day it came out was like 3 weeks. And I was like on vacation in Costa Rica, so like I had no shows to get like live clips. I could like maybe try to make some like content stuff, but I was like away from home. I was like not doing that. And we didn't really have any buzz on TikTok. Like had a little bit from like one video or even Instagram or any of the other platforms. But kind of like just trusted the process and put it out, and like did more like traditional like promotion materials, and it's like doing super well on like Beatport right now. So to anyone listening, I think there is, it's not like everything has to go through this, but I think you need to be proficient in some way with these platforms, just to try to get your music and in front of as many people as possible. And I think the better you are at it, it just helps your overall career as an artist. And I want to talk to you about like how how you kind of got more involved in like the music industry from this, because I think there's tons of like artists and DJs that just you know, have accounts and are putting out some music, but you know, they're not playing shows. Like I've seen you play shows in Chicago, which is like probably fucking crazy for like a kid that lives near Brighton or whatever to be coming over there. And I'm sure there's a lot more of that in your future as well. But like what was that process like to kind of, you know, you have a collab with a Wax and shit? That's fucking crazy.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And honestly, as well, congrats. Like Push to Start is killing it. So it's cool to hear the story. But the fact that there was 3 weeks between the master and then release, and then it's done what it's done is like pretty wild.
Weird.
Yeah, but anyways, so in terms of transferring that over, as I was saying, for me, I hadn't really seen many people coming up through TikTok that were taken seriously within the scene yet, because TikTok was still really new when I started. But I was kind of convinced that I was hoping that that could be a path that I would take, because it was still really important to me that other DJs still respected the music that I was making. And I genuinely was not just wanting a viral moment and then to fall off. That was like my worst nightmare. I really wanted to be part of the scene. So I was lucky when my manager came across me from TikTok, because he was scrolling through the platform, kept seeing my videos come up. And they're based over in the States, and they manage Wax as well. So that was where that kind of collaboration has come from. And Wax has been so nice to me and just helped me out so much in terms of just giving me advice and from his experience. So we've been working on a few different tunes together. So, you know, that was really exciting. But I think I just always made it very clear what my intentions were. And I was approached by some bigger labels and also some managers and various people that were tempting, but they were not down the path. They weren't aligned with where I actually really wanted to go. They were much more on the commercial side. And I didn't really want to make commercial house music or commercial dance music as such. And I sometimes actually don't like using the word commercial, because I think that what really defines commercial, you know, Fred again is now commercial, but that doesn't mean that his music is in that bracket. So, but you understand what I'm trying to say. That wasn't where I was trying to head.
You don't want to like sacrifice your like what you want to do to become popular, I would say. Because like someone like Fred again, he's popular, but he never like, you know, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like he did it to become popular. It's just he became popular because he's really good, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So I think that probably one of the main ways in which I've managed to move more into the industry was just making sure that as you are growing, don't take the bait from people that are not aligned with your goals, because you will be sent straight onto the wrong path, in my opinion. And I'm really glad that I made the decisions that I did, because it's more important to make sure that you're heading in the direction that feels right to you. And ever since I set off, I wanted to be a DJ that would, you know, be touring and being on in the Beatport charts and all that stuff. And my goal was not to be number one in the UK top 40. Obviously, everyone would love that, but that was not the initial goal. So I think just making sure that my decisions were aligned with that goal helped to put me in the right direction. And then, as I say, I've been working with my management now for probably around a year or so. And I just think that we had a few complications and some learning curves in terms of contracts and various things that I had signed before they came involved. But that's all in the past, and you live and you learn. And now I'm really just focused on making the best music that I can and just putting out stuff that I really enjoy listening to and playing out.
Yeah, I think it's such an important realization of like what you want as an artist. And you know, not like, I think management should never have to direct you in a certain way. Like it should always be supporting like what you want as an artist. And I think that's extremely mature of you to kind of like know what you want at this age, especially with like having so much popularity on a social media platform. It's easy to just like, I want to chase that, I want to chase that, I want to chase that. And for some people, there's nothing wrong with chasing that. I think it's just you want to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons and not just from like the dopamine rush of like being popular on like a social media platform. You got to be like, okay, you know, going back to your roots, like what, like, it was like you loved, you know, playing and DJing at these house parties and like the love of electronic music. It's like those first moments are so important in your overall like goals, and it kind of feels like it's like that's the stuff that really influenced of like where do I want to go with this project. We've been talking for an hour, man. This is a fucking awesome conversation, dude. I'm glad we were able to finally hang out face to face, even though it's unfortunately on the computer. But
Yeah, well, I'll be at Miami, so I guess
I was
you'll
gonna
be there
say, are
as
you
well,
coming to
right?
Miami? Fuck yeah, that'll be
Yeah.
awesome. I was gonna
Yeah,
ask.
so
I was like, you got to
hopefully,
be coming to Miami. Are you playing any
definitely,
parties
yeah.
there or sneaking
No,
on the
not,
decks?
yeah, no, I think, no, not technically. Obviously, Wax and I have got this release coming out, and he has got his own boat party. So I'm going to be going to that, and like we'll see what happens. But it's yeah, I'm not officially, but bro, it's going to be really good fun. And as you mentioned, Wax and I have got that song. We have a track called La Samba coming out, which is a cool like Latin house track together on Nervous Records, which is going to be out by the time this podcast is out. I assume it will already have
It will
dropped.
be. It
So
will be.
yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that, and just before Miami Music Week as well. But yeah, hopefully I'll get to meet you when we're in Miami
Oh
properly, and
yeah,
we can have a
have
little
some tequila
party.
for sure.
Sounds like a plan,
Gonna
bro. Yeah,
haze you,
thank you for
man.
having me on.
Thank you,
I
brother.
know the week's gonna hit me hard. Everyone's been telling
Yeah,
me.
you gotta prepare for it, especially if it's your first Miami. But thank you so much again for coming on the podcast. It was super awesome. This is Riordan, everyone, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, man.